The register froze mid-transaction. We'd just opened for the morning. My mother was restocking the end caps. My father was in the back pretending to do payroll. The only employee on shift had called out again. Family emergency. There was always an emergency. The customer waited. I ran a soft reset on the terminal. Nothing. I checked the Ethernet line. Loose again. The sticker I'd used to label it last week was already peeling. I didn't sigh. I didn't curse. I just bent down, replugged the cord, waited for the beep, and rebooted the point-of-sale system from memory. The woman waiting at the register smiled like I was doing her a favor. I wasn't. I was doing their job. My name is Nina Desai, 26, former logistics undergrad at ASU, current unpaid operations manager at Desai Market, a family-owned general store in Chandler, Arizona. I left college in my third year. No scandal, no failure, just a phone call from my mother. We need you. I believed her. That was 4 years ago. At first, it was temporary. I deferred one semester, then another, then enrollment lapsed. By then, I'd already rebuilt their vendor tracking spreadsheet, consolidated freight shipments to reduce soft margin loss, and saved them $4,200 in recurring delivery fees. My father called it helping the family. He said, "You were always the organized one." I should have seen it then. But I didn't, because loyalty blinds you before betrayal does. That morning when the register finally rebooted, the customer paid in cash. I handed her change. She thanked me. I said nothing, because just over her shoulder I saw Vic walk in. My younger brother, button-down shirt, fresh haircut, one hand in his pocket, one hand waving at my mom like he was visiting from a conference. She beamed. "Look who's back!" I stayed behind the counter. He walked over, kissed her cheek. "Took in the store like a consultant surveying a failed pilot. Looks smaller than I remember," he said. It wasn't a complaint, just a diagnosis. My father emerged from the back like a campaign manager reuniting with a candidate. There were hugs, laughter, a reference to Vic's business acumen. He hadn't even been in the state for a week. I handed off the drawer count to my mother and walked into the stockroom. I didn't slam the door. I just shut it. Then I checked the delivery logs. 3 pallets hadn't been signed for. The freight had been billed but not verified. I filed the discrepancy report, updated the dashboard, flagged the duplicate invoice. No one asked where I was. Later that evening during closing, I heard my father on the phone. He was in the back room, voice lowered but still audible. "Vic's ready," he said. "She's good with details, but he's got the bigger picture." The phrase landed with a thud. She's good with details. That's what they called 4 years of unpaid labor. That's what they called the business model I rebuilt from scratch. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I sat at my desk, opened a new spreadsheet, and titled it Desai Exit, Personal, First Sell, Trigger Condition, CEO Transfer to Vic. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing, because no one asked. It happened in the middle of a Tuesday inventory meeting. The whiteboard still had my notes on seasonal rotations. The Q4 shelf schematic I'd spent 3 nights assembling was pinned behind my father's shoulder. Vic stood beside him, arms crossed, half smile, not even pretending he hadn't skimmed the report. "We've been thinking," my father started, as if this was spontaneous. "It's time for a more formal leadership structure." I didn't interrupt. I let the silence fill the space he wanted me to smooth over. "Vic's going to step in as CEO," he said. Step in. Like this was a formality, like there hadn't been a title-shaped vacancy that I'd filled, invisibly, for 4 years. My mother added, "You're still part of the core team, of course. Nothing changes day to day. Nothing changes except the name at the top of every document, the person signing the vendor contracts, The signature that matters. Vic smiled. We're all building this together, just bringing some structure. I looked at the register. The sticker I replaced last month was still crooked. The label maker had jammed again. I never got around to redoing it. I said nothing. He leaned forward slightly. I know it's sudden, but with my background it just makes sense. His background. A 2-year MBA with a capstone on digital loyalty apps, internship at a mid-size grocery chain he left after 6 months, 0 time in this store, but he wore the role easily. Confidence never had to earn its place when you were handed the floor plan. My father said, "You've been amazing, Nina." Truly, this will free you up to focus on what you're best at. He didn't say what that was, but I heard it anyway. Execution, not vision, support, not strategy. I nodded. Then I stood up, erased my notes off the whiteboard, and walked out. No slammed doors, no words, just the sound of a marker squeaking as the last rotation calendar disappeared. That night I checked our file share system. My access was unchanged, not yet, but I downloaded everything: supplier lists, historical invoices, margin data, employee schedules, password change logs, bulk order strategies, copied, sorted, labeled. I encrypted the folder and uploaded a backup to an external drive I'd kept in a locked drawer since undergrad. Not for emergencies, just for when things became clear. The next morning, Vic parked in my space. I didn't bother moving him. I parked across the street, then walked in like a stranger, did my job. Opened the registers, counted the drawer, said nothing. By noon, I'd decided to leave. No announcement, no timeline, just quiet preparation. Because I knew something they didn't. I had no title, but I had every system, and once I walked out, they'd realize the store ran on me, not his smile, not their legacy, me. The letter was short, 3 sentences, no emotion, just clarity. Effective 2 weeks from today, I will be stepping away from Desai Market. This decision is final and not open for negotiation. Please consider this notice formal and complete. I printed 2 copies, left one on the counter, slid the other into the safe. Then I logged off the POS system I'd restructured, removed the rotating shift calendar I'd built in Excel from the corkboard, cleared the browser cache from the back office desktop, and walked out for the last time without saying goodbye. They didn't notice at first. Day 1. No call. Day 2. 1 text from my mother. We thought this was just a break. I didn't reply. By day 4, I heard from Annika, the only employee who had stayed longer than a year. She messaged me privately. They're trying to reorder pallets and messed up the vendor portal. They're calling it a systems glitch. It wasn't. I had offboarded myself so cleanly they couldn't tell where the structure ended and I had begun. No one had saved the order templates. The quarterly markdown matrix was gone, buried in a local folder they never backed up. The freight consolidation agreement I negotiated last fall, it expired that week. Vic started asking Annika for help. She forwarded me a screenshot. Do you know where Nina saved the Q1 rotation model? She didn't answer. Neither did I. They were scrambling. But that wasn't the point. I didn't want to see them flail. I wanted to see them adjust, and they couldn't. Because they had confused silence for simplicity, and now silence was strategy. While they were sorting out register breakdowns and overstock errors, I was meeting with a commercial real estate consultant 8 miles away. Her name was Jasmine. She didn't care about my resume. She cared about my questions. Square footage minimum for retail inventory rotation, walkability index anchor proximity, zoning flexibility. I told her I was launching a concept store, lean model, discount forward, focused on high turn SKUs. She nodded. You've done this before. I said, something like that. At night, I updated my files, gave the new folder a name, Backdoor Blueprint. Inside, everything they once had, except now it was optimized, unbranded, and fully mine. The email address I used had no last name. The EIN was filed under ND Wholesale LLC, and the logo, just my initials, stamped on a white tag, black sans serif, nothing dramatic, just clean, unmistakable, permanent. They had taken my title, I had taken their foundation, and they didn't even know it yet. Freshwise wasn't looking for loyalty, they were looking for leverage. Their expansion lead in the Arizona district had just quit, mid-cycle, 2 quarters short of projected growth. They needed someone who knew the area, understood inventory rhythms, and could move fast without asking permission. I applied under the name N. Desai, no resume attachment, just a bulleted email with 3 lines. 4+ years in small format retail, built 12-month margin gains with no tech stack I know who you're competing with. They called me within 48 hours. The interview was procedural. My interviewer, Lauren, skimmed my file. "You're overqualified for assistant expansion lead." I said, "That's fine. I'm here for 1 zip code." She raised an eyebrow. "Chandler?" I nodded once. "I know the flow there." She didn't ask why. She didn't ask who I worked for. She just said, "We onboard Monday." Freshwise ran like a company that didn't believe in hand-holding. They gave you access and expected you to make it useful. I did. Within 2 weeks, I had full visibility on expansion lots across Maricopa County. Within 4, I had keyholder access to their vendor management portal. By week 6, I was drafting lease inquiries on properties under review. I didn't volunteer ideas. I rewrote their Chandler expansion plan without being asked. Lauren flagged it during the monthly review. "This is aggressive." I said, "So was the vacancy rate last quarter." She forwarded it to corporate. It was approved within days. Phase 1, location acquisition. Phase 2, inventory footprint optimization. Phase 3, saturation modeling, targeting competitor blind spots within walking range. They didn't realize I'd written the competitor profile myself. And my old store? Patel General? I didn't mention it, because they weren't a threat. They were proof of concept. One day, Lauren passed my desk and dropped a folder. "Legal needs acquisition support for a secondary site. You good with lease tracing?" I opened it. Inside, a commercial property 1 block from Desai Market, lease expiring in 6 months, zoned for retail, underutilized frontage, below market rent. I didn't smile, I just flagged it. Primary acquisition target, fast-track recommendation. We filed the letter of intent that Friday. My name wasn't on the document. The signature read, ND Logistics Consulting, registered 2 weeks prior, address, P.O. Box, ownership, private. They had no idea, and that was the plan. They took my future like it was theirs to manage. Now I was back, with their playbook, their customers, and their street. And all I had to do was open the door. The building was nothing special. Single-story, steel awning, narrow backlot. Used to house a mail drop service that folded during the pandemic. Now it sat vacant. Sun-bleached and overlooked, with just enough foot traffic to matter and just enough damage to negotiate. It wasn't a flagship, it was a foothold. The landlord was a man named Derek, wore a Bluetooth earpiece he never used, managed 7 strip centers across the region, and priced his properties like he didn't care who moved in as long as they paid on time. I introduced myself as Nina D., regional operations for a small format retail concept. I didn't mention Freshwise. I didn't need to. He asked one question. "How fast can you sign?" I said, "Send the papers." The lease hit my inbox 2 hours later. Terms were standard, 5-year agreement with 2 optional extensions. Subletting allowed, renovations approved within pre-permitted limits. I had a real estate attorney skim it just to be sure. He flagged one thing. This clause here, it prevents the previous tenant from renewing unless the current leaseholder consents. I nodded. That wasn't a red flag. It was the reason I picked the building. The previous tenant? Desai Market. Their lease ended in 31 days. And the renewal clause. I had just inherited it. By Friday, the paperwork was filed. My name didn't appear on the official lease. It showed up under a holding company, ND Operations Group LLC, with an assigned representative in Tempe and a P.O. box registered through a proxy. No trail, no noise, just control. Freshwise gave final approval for fit-out the following week. Our designers proposed a minimalist interior with high-speed checkout lanes, digital shelf tags, and a seasonal discount model focused on everyday essentials. I approved the mock-up in 6 minutes. They thought I was fast. I wasn't. I was ready. Construction began exactly 3 days after the final shipment landed at Desai Market. I timed it that way, so Vic would look out the front window and see scaffolding go up on a building he thought he might get back. He posted about it the same day. A photo of the lot across the street captioned, "Looks like another chain store's coming for us. Wonder how long they'll last." I took a screenshot, filed it in a folder labeled Narrative, External. Because while he posted quotes, I posted results. Our soft opening was scheduled for October 7th. Desai Market's lease expired October 15th. They didn't even make it to the end of the month. The flyers went out 2 weeks early. Glossy trifolds, full color, with a discount ladder printed across the bottom. Opening day, 50% off essentials. Day 2, 30% off household. Day 3, 20% off everything else. We didn't plaster the city, just the block. 4 buildings down from Desai Market, across the community board at the rec center, on the windshield of every car parked within 1 square mile of their storefront. Our opening day was a Wednesday. Desai had announced their own fall relaunch on Thursday, a Hail Mary press release posted to their Facebook page with a single image of my father and Vic standing under a "Welcome Back" sign printed on banner stock. They called it a new era. We called it Wednesday. At 8:45 a.m., a line had already wrapped the side of our new store. A mother of 3 asked if she could grab 2 carts. The local high school's econ teacher was at the front, holding a cup of gas station coffee and scrolling through the Freshwise app. By 9 a.m., the parking lot was full. At 9:02, Vic stepped outside his store across the street. I watched from inside, beside the loading dock camera monitor. He crossed his arms, pretended to check his phone, looked up once, just once, toward the line. He went back inside. Our customer count hit 137 by 10 a.m. Patel General? 7. I counted. Our loyalty app registered over 400 scans in the first 6 hours. Desai's social media? 3 likes. 1 comment. Didn't know you were still open. I walked the floor, smiled, answered 2 vendor calls, flagged a restock order for aisle 6, and approved the shift bonus for the register crew. At 2 p.m., a woman in her 60s walked in and asked, "Did this used to be something else?" I nodded. Briefly. She looked around. "This is better." Later, I stepped outside, just for air. I stood on the sidewalk, looked across the street. Desai Market's windows were uncovered now. No balloons, no foot traffic. Vic stood behind the counter, scrolling something on his phone. He didn't see me. My father was sitting in a chair behind him, watching. That was the difference. They were watching. I was moving. We closed at 8 p.m. Our day one sales beat the projection by 24%. Freshwise sent a well-done email with a digital badge attached. They didn't know the backstory. They didn't need to, because this wasn't about bragging. It was about replacement, quiet, deliberate, complete. And the final step was already underway. The building sale closed on a Monday. Same corner lot, same walls, new terms. My LLC ND Operations Group purchased it at full market rate. No negotiation, no mortgage. Just a clean wire transfer from a corporate account routed through a Freshwise expansion fund. The lease renewal clause was voided the moment the ownership changed hands. Desai Market had 2 weeks to vacate. They didn't fight. They didn't even reply. The legal team served notice at 9 a.m. sharp. Signature required. My mother signed for it. Her name scrawled small in the corner of the delivery receipt. They didn't make a statement online, but the sign came down 3 days later, and that was the statement. Freshwise offered to repurpose the space as a clearance format outlet, low margin, high velocity, seasonal turnover. They asked if I wanted naming rights. I said yes. The new sign was installed 1 week before Black Friday. White on green, clean font. Neha discount, powered by Freshwise. My name, not in cursive, not hidden in initials. Full name, backlit. Visible from across the street where Desai Market used to stand. Vic didn't show up on opening day. Neither did my father, but my mother came. I saw her in the parking lot, standing outside her car. She didn't go in, just stared at the storefront for a few minutes, then left. She didn't recognize the staff, didn't know the product lines, didn't understand how we'd moved in so fast. That was the point. Inside, aisle 3 carried the same product lineup I used to stock by hand. The difference? Now it moved 3 times the volume. Half the waste, fully optimized. My team asked if I wanted to cut the ribbon. I said no. They did it anyway. The photo ended up on a local business blog. Old corner, new vision. Discount giant opens in former family-owned space. They didn't name the family, but I saved the headline, filed it in a folder labeled Final Entry, not out of pride, out of protocol. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about alignment. They told me to leave school because the business needed me, then they handed the title to someone else. Now the title sits above the door I bought out from under them. It's not called Desai Market anymore, it's mine.